Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a while. Welcome back to Comic Edition.
My name is Lindsay, and this is Malcolm. We are your hosts of Office Hours from Comic Edition. Today, we are going to be talking about the new Thunderbolts movie that comes out this Thursday. Today is Tuesday, April 29th, the day after National Superhero Day. Malcolm, did you do anything to celebrate yesterday?
I must confess that I did not know yesterday was National Superhero Day.
I almost gave you the heads up on that, but I just
Yeah,
assumed that we were both there.
I was not on the same page. I am sorry.
Well, that just means we'll have to celebrate twice as hard this Thursday when we are in the 2 o'clock showing, the first possible showing in our area for Marvel Thunderbolts. We have a couple questions that we're going to talk about today, as always, really unpack, dig into our research. But before we get started, Malcolm, expectations high, low? How do you feel?
My expectations have been high since it was announced. I have been extremely high on this movie. The two projects I've been so excited for and like just expecting them to be good, Agatha All Along and Thunderbolts. From the beginning, it just seemed like I just had a good feeling that I can't explain, I can't logic it away.
Yeah.
Feel good.
You have a good gut with it. I was very low on Agatha before it started. I thought it would be fine, but certainly didn't think it would be amazing.
Mhm.
And boy, was I wrong. One of my favorite Marvel projects of all time. So, hoping for a similar reaction here. Thunderbolts is something that I kind of ignored until it got really close, but now I am thrilled. As people have been coming out of the early screenings, it has 95% on Rotten Tomatoes as its debut score. Again, we've not seen this film yet. We are privy to many spoilers, as I'm sure those of you watching this on the internet also are. So this will have some spoilers, or at least according to the internet spoilers. We obviously don't know if they are true or not. But with that in mind, are you ready to get started?
I am.
Okay, our first question today then is about the Void. So obviously this movie is about the Sentry, who has another personality known as the Void. We have a concept known as the Void in Marvel. We've seen it in the Loki show, which is this place that people get pruned to. We also saw it in Deadpool and Wolverine. So my question for you is the Void the Void? Are they related? Are they separate? And what should a general audience do with this?
I want to think that they're related simply because it's kind of, this is a harsh word and I don't mean it in a harsh way, but it's irresponsible to introduce two concepts that are named the same thing and not have them be at all related, right?
Yeah.
So close to each other. Like the last blockbuster Marvel movie, I'm sorry, Captain America, but Deadpool and Wolverine had the Void in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're being introduced to a character named the Void. So it's just like, it can be a little confusing, and they could decide to no longer call the void and just say it's this is an actual person or whatever it is. But I think, and I have a theory behind this, that they are related in some way.
Well, how do you think they're related? If you have a theory, feel free to
Okay.
pitch it
All
if you
right,
want to.
let's do
Yeah.
it. I think they'll have to separate whatever the void personality entity, it's a cosmic entity in the comics, but it'll have to be separated from Bob, the Sentry.
Mm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
separating it, or you like casting out a demon or whatever, trapping it where it is, you do something, it creates something, a vacuum in reality.
I like that word that you just used, like that vacuum in reality,
Mhm.
because that really is the similarity in that connective tissue I see behind what we know of the void, the character, and the void, the place. Is it's kind of this desolate place where nobody really wants to be, absence of life. Because at least in the way that they've marketed this, where he says like, "I am the void," and things of that. Like when we hear those lines and we see like Elena walking into the darkness and the way the shadows are depicted, it really is like absent, right? It's this vacuum of the energy and the life around. I watched a presentation earlier today about like vampires that like suck the energy out of rooms.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I think about when I think of the void, the character based on the marketing. And when you look at Loki, you look at Deadpool and Wolverine, it's this discarded reality where people that don't matter go, that are wrong in their reality. And so if we're looking at this before Doomsday, we're anticipating that we get to this multiversal world that maybe, or war that maybe takes place in the void. It could make sense to really separate those things in the way that you describe and have this like abyss kind of transfer out. I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but I certainly see the connective tissue that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I feel like if you want to tell the story, this is the easiest way to do it. It's just to say, you know what? If we have to explain what the void is, let's just use this character that's also called the void and say when you pull them apart, it becomes a place.
Yeah, well, in some of the reviews I was hearing earlier today were saying that Lewis Pullman, who is the actor that plays Bob, the Sentry, the Void, many roles, does a lot of heavy lifting in this movie, and that he has a phenomenal performance. And so it makes sense to me that whatever happens is going to be very central, not probably not only to this story, but to Doomsday, which he is confirmed to be in.
Yeah, also it would allow us to depower him just a little
Yeah.
bit.
That's true, right? We have a lot of very powerful beings in
Yeah.
the MCU. Yeah, we're supposed to be afraid of Doctor Doom, who we've never met. So
Mhm.
we certainly need some power scaling to occur.
Yeah.
Okay, well, kind of related, right? We're talking about like identity, what things look like, whether he splits is the same. Pivoting to now the Thunderbolts, right? That is the actual team that we're looking at, comprised of multiple characters we've met over multiple phases, back to phase one from Bucky here in the MCU.
Yeah.
Why are they called the Thunderbolts? You mentioned Captain America 4 a minute ago. Is it about President Thunderbolt Ross? Is it about something else? Obviously, there's an asterisk, but even before we get to that, why the Thunderbolts? Why do we start there?
I'm going to speak very confidently about something I have no clue about, and I'm going to
Of
say it's
course.
because of Thunderbolt Ross, because we know he wanted to restart the Avengers. That was a part of the main thing, the tension between him and Sam. He's like, pull this
Hmm.
to the side. Spoiler, if you didn't watch that, and if you didn't watch that, I'm not responsible. Hey, I want to restart the Avengers, and it's something he wanted to do. So I think maybe they called them the Thunderbolts for that reason.
I think that makes sense, right? We'll talk about cameos a little bit later on, but obviously Bucky was in Captain America. It would make sense to me if Cap is in this film, and so I think there certainly has been conversation. I believe they talked about it in Cap, where he mentioned that like Ross wants him to restart the Avengers to
Yeah.
Bucky. I believe that was part of the conversation, and so I could see a world where Bucky brings that up in this context, right? It's like, well, if we're restarting the Avengers, like that could be us. We could be, his Avengers, and then somebody might say the Thunderbolts, like we've seen that clip from Alexi. So I
Yeah.
could see that conversation maybe flowing based on what Sam and Bucky talked about at the hospital.
The original rumor was that it was related to a soccer team or something like that. Yelena's soccer team
What?
when she was younger.
That
Um,
sounds dumb. I'm sorry to say
yeah.
it, but that sounds
But
what?
then it could be a quote about lightning and thunder, and someone says, "Let's speak all the thunderbolts." But
It just like you said with the void though, taking that one word that has meaning to MCU fans and expecting a general audience to understand the division, sometimes you need to do the easier thing. And
yeah,
yes, they could try to tell us like a convoluted story about lightning and thunder and like make that fit and make that work. But when we just had like months ago, like 3 months, I mean, 2.5, 3 months ago, a movie about Thunderbolt Ross, who was the president of the USA, and we're dealing with like Val, who is, or at least was part of the CIA. We're dealing with, Bucky, who knows Sam. We have so much, adjacent content. It would be
mhm.
such a waste to go through all that when we don't have to.
Well, the one thing I would say is the easiest thing for it to be like if they called it the Thunderbolt Initiative because he wanted to restart the Avengers,
Yeah.
but then also, oh no, there was, what did I? Oh no, there's a reason why I thought that was not possible, and it's not because he's in jail or that or whatever happened to him. Oh, because this is not a spoiler because they released this clip officially,
Okay.
right? The scene where Val is talking to each of them and she's like, "Hey, Bucky, hey, uh,
Yeah.
Varsity Captain America." She sent them down there to kill one another,
Right.
right? So I would assume she wasn't trying to form a team if
Right.
she sent them down there to assassinate one another. It sounds like she was cleaning up stuff that she was doing on the side that she shouldn't have
Mhm.
been
See,
in
I,
her
I agree
technical
with you that I
capacity.
don't think it's like the Thunderbolts initiative or something
Yeah,
that he actually tried to organize.
yeah,
But I do think again that conversation about light spoilers for those listening. The end of the movie will likely give them the title of the Avengers and the New Avengers, and I think in getting to that prospect, I think that conversation of well, Thunderbolt Ross said to assemble the Avengers. I think he was right. The world needs Avengers. That it's like we can't be the Avengers. Okay, we'll be the Thunderbolts, and then maybe some back and forth on that. I think might be part of the story. I don't think they'll waste too much time with it though. So,
no, no,
well, more important question though: who gonna die? Any of the Thunderbolts? Who's in
yeah,
it? Who's
just
out?
one.
Who? Say it for us. Does that not
Taskmaster
feel
is
too
out of here.
obvious?
It
Does
is
it?
obvious, but sometimes the obvious thing, like we read so
Yeah.
far deep into things, and they're like, no, literally, we're telling you it's just this.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
need to just take them at their word, and it's just that. And we've
Yeah.
seen the chairs for Doomsday, and everybody
Yeah.
else is on there except for this one person.
I mean, she isn't even in the marketing, which breaks my heart. We haven't even seen the actress's face once in the film.
Yeah.
It likely is her stunt double for a lot of it. I don't even know how involved she was, how big her part was, but it's pretty disappointing. And I wonder, for a lot of reasons why that is. I do think people are probably getting it wrong when they say that she is the only one that dies.
Okay, why
Just
you say
because
that?
character Yeah, just because characters come back in Doomsday or actors come back, they didn't tell us what characters come back. I'm not, going to claim 100% that other people are going to die, or at least other main Thunderbolts, but we don't know that these are the versions of them we're getting. One, because we're in a multiverse, but two, how cool would it be? And I think we have the tools to have a scene where we have like four different Captain Americas all interacting with each other, right? We could have our Steve Rogers back. We could have Bucky having been given the shield instead. We could have Sam Wilson there with the shield. We could have, again, US agent if he didn't take the serum and go down that path, all having
Yeah.
this conversation. And I think that as we get towards the multiversal movie, it's going to be confusing for general audiences in general to see, like, okay, why are six different actresses dressed like Black Widow? And I think an easy way to give us that multiversal feel would be to do similar to what If does and give us that context where it's like we have enough as an audience, or at least I would say the majority, of the general population that is watching this movie at all is going to have some context from at least the films, if not from some of the shows, to be able to understand the multiversal weight of a Steve Rogers that didn't go back in time and stay with Peggy, or of Bucky as Cap, if not anyone else. So I think there's possibility for some variant shenanigans with many of them.
Yeah, I just don't think you do that. I think that's way too confusing for the general audience.
Well, then
Um,
where does the multiverse come in? When does that really
it won't
impact us?
be, I don't think that Doomsday is necessarily it, right?
Mm.
When we get to Secret Wars, that's when we're going to get the variants. And I think when you do variants, I think I do the same actor with variations. I don't think I'm going to bring in a ton of different, unless I've been introduced to them already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, exactly that, right? Unless we've been introduced to them already. And I
but I
think that
mean
this is,
introduced to that
yeah,
variant already.
yeah,
So when I say that, I mean like Cyclops versus Cyclops versus
yeah,
Cyclops. You know what I mean? We've seen those variants
yeah.
already. Um,
I just think it would be so much fun and a really clever way because again, they did not tell us what characters are coming back, and I think they did so intentionally. What we just saw when they started filming, like yesterday, the Russo brothers posted on social media a chair that said Victor Von Doom. They have chairs with the character names, but they showed us just the actor names. And I think that for at least somebody, right? I'm not saying everybody, but for somebody, there's got to be some shenanigans there. And I think that the Thunderbolts, with so many characters, and I find it hard to believe that they revealed all of the stakes right before the movie came out. They could have done that announcement at any point in time. They could have done it the day after the movie came out. There was no inherent reason. There's certainly some characters you're going to want to introduce that you're filming with right away, but to show us specifically the Thunderbolts, that lineup, I just refuse to believe that Marvel spoiled the entire ending of the movie. I mean, on the
although
opposite hand, like I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus dies. A lot of people think that, but just because her name is not there, I don't know how her character necessarily is relevant. But I could see really. I don't even know which one of them I want to put my money on to say it dies, but I think that it's possible for at least some of them too.
okay.
Okay. Next question. So not who's going away, who might be coming to visit, right? We've talked about Sam Wilson. I think there's a really high chance that we see him in a scene of the movie, maybe in a cameo like Bucky, maybe in something more significant, just by nature of that friendship that they seem to be putting a lot of, a lot of respect towards. We saw it in Captain America as we move forward, as we assemble the Avengers for Doomsday, whatever that looks like. I
Mhm.
think that'll be our connective tissue that pushes us forward. But besides that, anything's fair game. Who are we going to see? What are we going to see in this movie that hasn't been advertised?
I would just say Sam. And I think I ended there. I don't think
Okay.
we're going to get a ton of cameos. I think when you put in cameos, you're taking away from,
Yeah,
developing each of these characters because it's a whole team.
a
And
lot of
by all
people.
accounts, we're supposed to be connected to these people by the end of the movie. And the more of those like interesting things you wave in front of my face and say, look over here, the less invested I am in the people I'm getting to know.
Yeah. Well, I
The
feel like I know
exception
where you stand
being,
with this, but do you think
yeah.
we're going to see any reference to the events of Daredevil Born Again? Any mayor, I mean, again, mayor of New York. We know a relationship between Val and Kingpin exists to at least some degree. We're not going to see any of that. We know Yelena knows Kingpin.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe Kingpin gets name dropped,
Give it to me, please. Just
but
the
that's
name
it.
drop is enough, please.
But that's it. I don't think yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it's something in the background, a Fisk for mayor
yeah.
sign,
I
maybe.
will take a sign. I'll take a sticker. I'll take a sign. I'll take a
I doubt it.
whisper. It just for it to take place in New York when New York is in martial law, and we've seen Marvel do it before, where they just pay no mind to this really big, significant thing that we ought to be talking about.
Yeah,
But this just happened and is on the minds of a lot of viewers. Daredevil Born Again, had pretty significant viewership from Disney Plus. Certainly, the fans of Marvel are thinking about it,
mhm.
even if a casual audience that just wanders into this movie may not be. It would be really nice to have some, and again, same thing with Captain America. If we had the president just step down or like get arrested, it'd be really nice to have those events addressed. And maybe we do so through Sam. But I think there's a possibility as well that we go to the raft. This is the one that I'm like actually betting on a little bit because we know a lot of the original members of the Thunderbolts are on the raft, are held prisoner. Like Baron Zemo is a good example there. Thunderbolt Ross himself is an example there. And I think there are one or two more people I can't pull up right now. But I think there's a chance that we visit the raft very briefly, maybe walk past their cell, have a single conversation. And I think that could fit in narratively really well. Wouldn't distract from anything. They wouldn't be coming out and joining unless they literally joined the team. But I don't think that'll happen. But I think there's some possibility for like a Zemo cameo, for example.
Yeah, just when the movie first was announced and the script was being written, uh,
Hmm.
I think there was like there was supposed to be a tie-in from Captain America, and that was changed so much. So I don't even know if this is still, a relevant thing. But one was supposed to lead into the other,
Hmm.
right? That was what one of the first things I heard
The
about Thunder.
leader was the other one. I'm so sorry. I just said the
Yeah.
leader is the other person in the raft. Yeah.
Um, so I'm assuming this movie at some point is going to reference the events of, I mean, already it's referencing the events because we saw Bucky was running for Congress, and now we know
Right.
he's no longer in Congress based off of the clip that is
Hmm.
official that was released.
Yeah.
So yeah, just Sam. And maybe those folks in the raft. I mean, that also makes sense.
Yeah. I think if anyone, that's the
Especially,
most likely. I don't think we're gonna get like She-Hulk in this or something.
yeah, for me, the one that makes the most sense is Zemo. And not just
Yeah.
because he's a part of the lineup in the comics, but because Century Bob is supposed to be like the ultimate super soldier,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
Zemo's whole shtick is we got to eliminate super soldiers. So I
Right.
could at least see them, like, you know what I mean? He was able to
Right.
get
Well,
into the
and he
mind
has
of a
connective
super
tissue with
soldier.
Bucky. They literally know each other.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of reasons where that would make sense. I think it would make a lot of people very happy to see Zemo. I know a lot of people were really upset that he wasn't included as a member of this team to begin with, just because of his presence here in the comics. And the actor is so beloved in terms of how he plays this role, and he's very playful. I think he could have some pretty good chemistry with some of the people that we know are in this film, even if just very, very briefly in a conversation. And to me, that wouldn't overwhelm or really bulk it or really take anything away from anyone else, but just give us a fun moment that comic fans could appreciate, that MCU fans could appreciate, and that if you don't know who Baron Zemo is, if it's just a conversation with a prisoner at a raft, like that's enough. So,
Mhm.
okay. Well, now that we've talked about who might join us, let's end it with this. And this kind of touched on cameos as well, which is our post-credit scenes. These have been leaked. At least our expectations for them. Right? We've been told something, whether or not that's true, we can't validate. But let's take a moment to talk about what we know and how we feel about that. So there are two post-credit scenes.
But
Would you
wait,
like to describe them?
whoa, wait. Spoiler. If you do not want this
Yeah.
movie spoiled for you,
Oh
please,
yeah. Get
by
out.
all means,
Hmm.
skip ahead to any time that we're not. I'll wave my hands like this when we're done
Okay.
talking about the spoilers. But we're about to potentially provide some spoilers for the
Yeah.
post-credit scenes.
Yeah, spoilers that when I found out, I will say, like, it certainly impacted the way I'm gonna go into the end of this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
Okay.
click off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
All right. Two. There's two. Yes. Two post-credit scenes. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead and you wanted to describe them to us if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, okay. I'm real iffy on the first one. The first one is more of a comedic, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly, mid-credit scene that deals with
Hmm.
the Red Guardian, who I
Yeah.
am enjoying thoroughly. I love the marketing around Red Guardian, first of
Oh, so
all.
the marketing for him has been bad. I did
Yeah.
not. cared for him in the Black Widow movie. He was one of my least favorite parts of that movie, just because I don't love obnoxious men, and that's who he is meant to be, is an obnoxious
Mhm.
man. I think that the actor, though, David Harbour, cares so much about that role, and the way they've used him in marketing, like you said, has just been so fun. The marketing campaign alone has really changed my view of that character going into this movie. So well done on them for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
Um,
it's like him trying to sell a Wheaties box with their faces on it
yes.
to, yeah, to
Yeah.
to like a family or something.
Yeah. So there you go. The one we
Sure.
need to talk about is
Yeah.
the end credit scene, um, which sees them having conversations again about the name. Remember the movie's title, we're saying Thunderbolts, but it's technically Thunderbolts asterisk. Um,
Hmm.
and they're having a conversation about that and about space threats when an alarm sounds.
Hmm.
And what do we see but the Fantastic Four entering into the 616?
Hmm.
Lindsay,
That's the rumor on the street.
what does
That's
this
the
do
rumor on
for
the
you?
street.
What does this do?
So the big question for me, similar to how we talked about, did the chairs that Marvel did spoil what's happening here in Thunderbolts? Does this spoil what's happening at the end of the Fantastic Four? We've all kind of had this collective assumption that no matter what, that film ends with them coming into our universe.
Yeah.
I think that is probably, you don't agree with that?
No, I agree with that.
Okay, you're shaking your head, but I think the film probably their film probably ends with that as well. But I do think it's interesting that we see this beforehand, that Marvel would so confidently tell us that that's what's happening. A small part of me does wonder if this is the start of their movie. I don't think there's a very high chance of that, but we do have that line in the Fantastic Four trailer where Pedro Pascal, as Mr. Fantastic, says, I stretched the bounds of space and they heard. I'm interested if there's something, because he's doing they've gone up to space. Maybe this is their first space travel. Maybe there's some jump like that. I doubt it, again, just based on how that timeline interacts. So this is not me saying it confidently, but it is me saying it excitedly, because that could be a really good subversion of our expectations for that film. Yet another one that we feel like we know everything about when we're going to the theater. But
Mhm.
it's really fun when Marvel's able to give us marketing in one direction and give us the movie in another. That's something we've complained about a lot, is that they've given us the whole movie right out. And really leading up to Captain America, Brave New World, that was a complaint that I had. As I'm like, well, this is everything. We saw it with Multiverse of Madness. I think was like the most egregious that they have ever done. Where it's like, why do I know that Professor X is in this? Why do I know that the Illuminati is here? Like those are moments you should save. Um, and this feels, like as I lean up to the Fantasy Core, I feel like I know everything. And so I'm really hoping that I don't. And to give us this makes me wonder if the timeline might be different than we were expecting it to. What do you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that doesn't preclude this from being the beginning of their movie in terms of um, they land and then they give us the backstory. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like some movies start at the end. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of like The Sixth Sense, right? Or whatever it is. Like you give us the end of the thing and then tell us how we got there. That
Yeah.
could very well be. But I don't think it won't. When I say it's the beginning, like the opening scene that we're going to see is the opening scene, like the
Hmm.
end credit is, and then that's it, and then we go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then they leave us off here.
I think that's probably, if anything, the most pragmatic way to view that. I would really appreciate if we get something like that in terms of the way that the narrative of Fantastic Four ends up being structured, where we do start at the end and then work our way backwards, just to kind of acknowledge what fans think they know already. Because sometimes movies really will talk to us like we're stupid, and like we're not on the internet. And
So I
yeah.
mean, the implication of that though is
Hmm.
that when Doomsday starts, because that's the next big movie, right? I don't think there's
Yeah.
in between that the Fantastic Four will be with the Thunderbolts.
Hmm. I
Right.
mean, yeah. And that's the cast that we got, right? Think about those shares. It's the Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, Cap, right? We also have some West Coast Avengers that we haven't really seen assembled, which I think we might deal with in Wonder Man, now that I'm like talking out loud, because we have to get to the West Coast at some capacity, if we want to loop in Shang-Chi. I don't know, I'm not sure who else is on that list right now, but for sure Shang-Chi. What do you think? How do we get everyone else there? When does that happen?
I have no clue. I have no
Yeah.
clue, but I think in terms of the last question you asked, who's going to survive, we're keeping our team alive. for the most
Hmm.
part, with the one exception of the person that they basically indicated to us will 100% not be there. Um, I think we're keeping our team, and I'm interested in what the team dynamic is because right now,
Yeah.
with understanding how they grow the team, we're saying, oh, they're going to kill off this person, but what if that person is essential to the chemistry that they
Yeah.
put on screen? So that's like killing one of the guardians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've heard this be referenced to like as the Guardians. You know, we grew to
Right.
know that team. When they first came out, we didn't know who they were. But if you took one of them away, it would change the dynamic completely, and they're no longer
Yeah.
a marketable unit.
I think
So,
that's fair. Now, as we're talking, I just pulled up the list of the Doomsday people, and all of these boxes really are starting to click together, at least in my mind. Our list starts with Robert Downey Jr., who obviously as Doctor Doom. I think we'll probably get a post-credit scene in Fantastic Four about him. It'd be crazy to me if we literally don't. But we have him. We have Thor and Loki, right? Loki has a connection to the Void already. Obviously, those two are very connected. I'm sure there's a million ways we can get to Thor via Loki, but the Loki the Void connection. We have the Fantastic Four. We have all of these people in this movie, plus Captain America and Falcon, which we know has that relationship with Bucky. All of them together by the end of this. Then all we still have left to assemble Black Panther, Namor, and M'Baku. Assuming that the actors all played who they could, but we know Bucky has a relationship with Wakanda. So again, maybe we even briefly talk about Wakanda here, whether we engage. I think that would be a very fair piece to connect together. Like, okay, I'm gonna go call Shuri now or something could be a phrase. And then West Coast, we have Ant-Man, Shang-Chi, and that's everybody other than the X-Men. So I think it's possible that this movie really does set up those pieces and in some capacity. That's cool.
it is very cool,
I
extremely
had
cool.
no hope a few months ago, and I was like, why the hell are they, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was most people's sentiment. Why is this movie
Mhm.
being made? Like
Yeah.
things were on the chopping block, right?
Yeah.
But why are they proceeding with this movie? I just had a great feeling
Mm.
about this group of people. And I'm happy to see that some of the initial reviews have been extremely overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
Um, I love that for them. Like just Agatha is in my heart. To
Yeah.
me, it's not my favorite Disney Plus series. It's not off by a lot. My favorite is Loki, but I think Agatha episode 7 is the greatest episode of Disney Plus, Marvel cinema,
Absolutely.
TV, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Lily ate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, but to see these characters who are technically side characters, B characters, as people are saying, really get to shine because they have been played by tremendous actors who are just good at what they do and have
Hmm.
fully embraced their characters more than some of our premier heroes have. Um, I think it's just excellent. I
That was
mean,
so well
and
said.
for
Yeah.
anybody who has a problem with that particular thing happening, the Avengers are not the A squad in the comics all the time, right? It's
Right.
you Fantastic Four taking the lead or the X-Men or whatever. But they made them popular because they made a movie about them. Well, why not do the same for some of these other
Yeah.
characters if they're interesting and they have an interesting story to tell
Yeah.
about them? So,
And if you make a good movie, people will respond. I know we were just talking about Sinners in our office a minute ago, and this is a time where cinema hopefully will allow us to rally behind a project together. I hope
mhm.
that this is that. But I think you said it very well. So, Malcolm, is there any closing thoughts that you want to offer our audience today? Oh, extra credit. Okay.
Extra credit. I don't remember what my extra credit question was. You know what? Instead of writing down the question, I was like, "Ooh,
You
that's a
wrote
good one."
extra credit.
I wrote extra credit.
Great.
Oh, because priorities, and we do this for a living. If yeah,
Yeah.
I just wrote down extra credit instead of the actual question. So
Well,
there it is.
if we're not going to do the extra credit question today, do tune in soon. We're going to be doing a special episode with our friend Ben where we recap about the Thunderbolts, talk about our thoughts afterwards, kind of the state of the MCU as we lead into Fantastic Four and Doomsday. So come back to our channel soon. I promise it won't be another 9 months until you hear from us.
Yes.
All
And
right.
if I
Thank you so
do think of
much.
the extra credit question, it'll be in the comments.
Okay.
All right.